So my experience was this. I was asleep. I had my back to the window, which was kind of down towards my feet, like from my thighs down. The window was kind of there. I woke up just feeling kind of hot and uncomfortable. And I felt something come on the bed. And I thought, well, first I thought maybe it was his cat, or then I thought maybe it was something came in the window, right? And so I kind of tentatively turned over, I rolled over, and I saw that what was crouched in the window was, in fact, a visitor. And I was so, I don't know what the word is. Uh, I wasn't, my initial reaction to things generally is not fear anyway, but I was overwhelmed with awe, with wonder, with desire to experience who or whatever this was. And where it had stepped onto the bed, its leg or its foot was up against my leg. I was under the sheet, but then I raised my hand so that I could touch it, touch its hand, touch its fingers. And when that contact was made, it was like an electric current, not unpleasant, but a vibration, a hum that ran down my hand and down the side of my body to where it was touching me. And the thought that it gave me in my mind, I didn't hear anything, I didn't hear any words externally, but it's like, what do you want me to do? And I said, go down the hallway. That's what I'm thinking. Go down the hallway. Those people, like, go see those people. But it shot out the window and vanished. Once it disappeared, I sat up and I kind of sat back against the headboard of the bed. And then I started having these images of the Eye of Horus. I had them when my eyes were closed. I had them when my eyes were open. And that's when I started to get a little frightened. I didn't understand it. I didn't know what it meant. I thought, am I hallucinating? Did touching it make me hallucinate? Is this going to stay? Like, what's going on here?
Welcome to Breaking the Silence. This is In Conversation With, and this is where we have conversations with guests, and in this case, a guest and a really good friend. Um, and sometimes we'll talk over each other and get excited and interrupt each other, and that's all normal. This is not an interview. This is not 60 minutes. This is In Conversation With. So I want to welcome Raven Dana back to Breaking the Silence. We haven't talked to you for a while. Some of you will know her from Whitley's book. Now, was that Transformation or was that Breakthrough?
Breaks.
It was Breakthrough.
Yeah.
And I remember reading about you in that book. I didn't know Whitley yet. I wouldn't meet Whitley till 1993 when he called me on the phone one night. And but I remember reading about that and thinking, God, you're so lucky. I would love to have been at the cabin and be able to talk to him and have that experience. And all these years later, he calls up and on the phone one night, and I didn't think it was him. I thought somebody was playing a joke on me, and he got very indignant. This is Whitley Strieber. I mean, it's just, you know him. You know how he is.
Whitley,
It,
yes, I
it,
get
it was
your voice. Yep.
it was very Whitley. So, and we've been friends ever since. And then eventually, I met you. Um, I knew who you were right away from the book and from that night that you spent there and what happened to you. It'd be fun. It would be interesting to start off with that, if you don't mind
I don't mind.
describing that again. And um, I'm going to show the drawing. I mean, it'll be edited in as we're talking that I did. Um, but I'm also
It's right here on the
thinking,
wall. It's right here.
oh, am I? Okay. I'm probably going to recreate that using my computer animation skills. Uh,
Okay.
it'd be really neat to do that. So anyway, but I digress. Tell us about that night. Tell us about that whole experience because it is fascinating.
Okay, well, Whitley invited me to the cabin with a few other people that he thought bringing us together would bring about a visitor experience. He had brought other people to the cabin periodically, and not much had gone on. And one of the reasons why he picked me to be among the people there was because my experience that I wrote to him about after communion, I was not one of those terrified people. I was someone who had had ongoing contact with something that when I saw the book Communion and recognized the face, I went, oh, there's the something. So that's sort of the backstory to that. And when I saw that book cover and I wrote to Whitley, I was surprised when I read the book how fearful he was. And one of my motives for writing to talk to him was to say, like, there were, for me anyway, there were benefits, there were things that changed, there were ways that I opened up that I would never, ever give up. And anyway, we developed a friendship, and hence he invited me to the cabin that weekend. So we went to bed uh, on the early side. And my experience was this. First of all, I'm going to tell you, I didn't expect to have anything happen whatsoever. Nothing. I wasn't, yeah. He
You're
had
not someone you're not someone who has expectations.
No, I have no expect, especially if Whitley has an expectation. I have no, I have no expectations. It's like, well, probably nothing's going to happen. And if it does, that's great. And if it doesn't, that's fine too. But he was very hopeful and had cameras set up around the house and things like that. There was also a director in the house and a couple of other people. So he was ready for something big to happen. And I mean, as it turned out, something did happen. So my experience was this. I was asleep. I had my back to the window, which was kind of down towards my feet, like from my thighs down. The window was kind of there. I woke up just feeling kind of hot and uncomfortable. And I felt something come on the bed. And I thought, well, first I thought maybe it was his cat, or then I thought maybe it was something came in the window, right? And so I kind of tentatively turned over, I rolled over, and I saw that what was crouched in the window was, in fact, a visitor. And I was so, um, I don't know what the word is. Uh, I wasn't My initial reaction to things generally is not fear anyway, but I was overwhelmed with awe, with wonder, with desire to experience who or whatever this was. And where it had stepped onto the bed, its leg or its foot was up against my leg. I was under the sheet, but then I raised my hand so that I could touch its hand, touch its fingers. And when that contact was made, it was like an electric current, not unpleasant, but a vibration, a hum that ran
Mm,
down my hand and down the side of my body to where
wow.
it was touching me. And the thought that it gave me in my mind, I didn't hear anything, I didn't hear any words externally, but it's like, what do you want me to do? And I said, go down the hallway. That's what I'm thinking. Go down the hallway. Those people, like, go see those people. But it shot out the window and vanished. And I also had remembered that earlier in the evening, it was bright out. It was bright out there, and I thought the moon must be full. Well, I discovered later there was no moon that night. I also discovered later that that window had a screen in it. Right?
Wow. Yeah.
There's another little right. So anyway, once it disappeared, I sat up and I kind of sat back against the headboard of the bed. And then I started having these images of the Eye of Horus. I had them when my eyes were closed. I had them when my eyes were open. And that's when I started to get a little frightened. I didn't understand it. I didn't know what it meant. I thought, am I hallucinating? Did touching it make me hallucinate? Is this going to stay? Like, what's going on here? So I sat there basically until it started to get light out, which was difficult because I really needed to use the restroom, but I wouldn't get up. And finally, when it started to get light out, I got up. I went and used the bathroom, and there were already people. Whitley started coming down the stairs. He said, don't talk to anybody. He gave everybody paper and pens, notebooks, I think, and pens, and said, sit at the table and write what happened, so that we didn't cross contaminate each other's experiences.
Sure.
So we sat and
Yeah.
did that. And it was fascinating. So like, other people did have experiences. One woman saw her dead brother. There was, of course, nothing on the cameras, but the person that was sleeping in the living room had the experience of the cot that he was sleeping on being lifted up and set down and lifted up and set down. And then what he saw was, well, first he saw like the visitor eyes, but he saw the Egyptian eye of Horus before it went out the side door. So what that connection is exactly, I didn't know then, and I don't know now, but I do know that I have always had a love of Egypt and the Egyptian Eye of Horus and all the mythology around it. And I've since learned things about visitor connections and, which I didn't know any of that at the time. But so that was my experience. And it was quite, that it was so physical. I was so happy that the experience occurred with me being fully awake and able to physically touch it. It was
Yeah.
unlike anything that I'd had happen before. Because as a kid, I had a lot of doubts and I was young and I'd see it at the foot of the bed, or I'd go out the window in what I imagined later was a dream. And when I asked my grandfather about it, when I got a little older, he said, oh, he didn't blow it off. But he said, who knows what it is? Gnomes, fairies, there's all kinds of life forms that we don't really know about. He said, but did it scare you? Did it say or do anything to scare you? And I said, no, it talked to me in my mind. He said, then don't worry about it. And I'm, again, to this day, so grateful for that it wasn't dismissed, it wasn't ignored. I wasn't told it's just your imagination or it's just a dream. I was told there are lots of things we don't understand. And if it's not being mean or scary, don't worry about it. And that's the best advice I could have gotten,
Wow.
growing up.
Um, my grandfather knew about this stuff too. Of course, you know about that. What I wanted to bring up though was your interest in the Eye of Horus. I too had that. It was very strong during the 80s and 90s. And in fact, I have an old address book that's all leather and embossed on it is the Eye of Horus. I used to have a belt buckle I wore all the time, the Eye of Horus. I used to have a necklace that had it. I mean,
Yeah,
it was just this. And I remember about the Eye of Horus and you seeing it. I didn't remember about the other person. Was that the director that
yes,
saw it as well? And of course, you didn't talk to each other, and you both wrote that down, and so that says to me there's something to it. Um, Probably not going to talk just yet about your granddaughter's drawings, but I'm looking at them right now, and the angel has an eye of Horus in it,
yeah,
the
yeah.
all-seeing eye. So that's really fantastic. And did you, as I did, look back on the childhood memories, with the exception of one that I can think of that was so powerful? Um, did you later, when you became a teenager, look back on those memories and tell yourself, well, it was probably just my imagination or a dream?
You know, the interesting thing about that is that I did for a little while
Hmm.
because I hadn't had experiences for a handful of years. But then when I was in high school, so I was a freshman in high school in biology class. And one thing I do remember is what my grandfather said is ask it what its name is. And what it told me was not what its name was, but what it wasn't. And it gave me the FARB, or the FARB. I called it FARB. And so first day of biology class, I'm sitting in the front on the in the front desk, sort of doodling and kind of randomly thinking about that little thing that I used to see at the foot of the bed. And the biology teacher writes fish, amphibians, reptiles, and birds. And I look up and I see FARB. right?
Oh, wow.
And I go, right, I take a breath and I get nauseous. And I think, oh, what? Oh, this is what it is not
You
fish,
you
amphibians,
got nauseous.
reptiles, or birds. And yeah, and then, Steve, my nose started bleeding.
Boy, you're a lot of fun.
I had,
Um,
yeah, and so I had to, then I excused myself and sat in the bathroom for a while until my nose stopped bleeding, and pondered that. And again, I came back to the classroom thinking, well, I guess that was all really real, and there's still somewhere because that was a memo. I was clear that that was a memo.
do you find that, going back and coming forward and what happened at Whitley's cabin that you felt that's it's not a bad nausea, but it's a unsettled stomach. Do you find that you
No,
get that?
it, yeah,
I do get it.
I get it. I mean, it's kind of shocking. It was just sort of, it was a surprise. It took me by surprise. Yeah.
Yeah. So I would quite imagine as time moved forward and you stumbled on Whitley's book, um, were any books prior to that or anything that you researched or read that,
No,
um, no.
I
You
didn't research
okay,
or
you're
read
we're
anything,
we're doing
anything
telepathy here, but
back.
it doesn't work on the show. No, you
So
didn't. Okay. So
no,
there was nothing that keyed you off to that you might be involved in this in a much deeper level than you
no,
realize.
no. In fact, again, after that experience in high school, I had several other experiences where I would get what I would call now like downloads. They would show me things, and I was clear that it was coming from them, but I didn't see them anymore. I saw these images in my head. I learned about things that were going to happen that then later happened in science, in nature, in the world. And so that happened for a bit. But when I had my daughters, then I started dreaming about them coming in and taking my daughters. That's the only time I was scared. That
Right.
scared me. And so I drew that iconic face. I drew that face and I showed my girls who were quite young at the time, hey, have you ever seen anything that looks like this? Because we talked about all between world stuff all the time. And both of them said no. They said nope and nope. But with that piece of paper, well, actually, it was on a napkin. So with that drawing still on my table at home, it was that week that I walked up to the bookstore and saw the book Communion. And that
Wow.
was my reaction. Made me nauseous. I like looked at the book and I had to sit down on the staircase. I just sat down and went, okay, all right. So I wasn't dreaming that the girls were being taken. The girls are being visited.
But that realization made you feel nauseous.
Yes. Well, it scared me on behalf of the girls. And then I just thought about it and said, well, I was fine. I'm still fine. They're going to deal with it. It's like everything's going to be okay. I got very calm after that. And then when I read Whitley's book, and then I'm like, okay, this is just something that's going to happen. It's been happening. They're doing me a service by letting me in on the fact that they're interacting with my girls because they didn't have to let me know that.
Do your girls still recall it? Because I mean, Andrew Whitley's son claims that he has no recall of it at all. Um,
My older daughter does. My younger daughter doesn't talk about it. My older daughter is, well, now she has a daughter, so she's kind of afraid. They live out in the middle of nowhere, so I keep telling them, go out
yeah.
at the sky at night, and my daughter's like, yeah, no, you come visit and you go look at the sky at night. I'm staying in. So
Oh,
she is cautious on behalf of her daughter. But my granddaughter she is not afraid. In
yeah.
fact, she has, since she's been very small, she has this whole connection with otherworldly things, and she always has since she's been very little. And she has a love of things that are strange, monsters, and she draws monsters. She says, just because they look funny or they're ugly doesn't mean they're bad. And so she has her favorite character, her favorite being is Jack Skellington, and she recognizes, interestingly enough, we had the conversation that Jack Skellington, what he really is, he is like a representation of the god Anubis, who she always grabbed. She had the statue of Anubis since the time she was small. Again, here's the Egyptian connection. But so in any event, my point is that she's very wise and she's very clear that there are things that live between the worlds, and that doesn't make them bad or scary. And so like what she does these days is often before she goes to bed, she'll draw a monster and tell her parents, I'm gonna set this loose in the house tonight after I go to bed. See if it comes to visit you. That's the kind of thing she does. She invites the monsters in.
Wow.
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah,
Uh, you know, I you sent some pictures to Mary and myself both a while ago
yeah,
on text, and for some reason I didn't see them. And I had a moment and I was looking through uh, a text about us doing this show, and that's when I saw the drawings that she did and what she had to say in the drawings. um, I'm going to put these drawings up as we talk about them. You won't
yeah.
see them right now while we're in the process of recording, but they will be edited into the show, and they're quite striking. And the way you sent them to me, the first one is it's one drawing. It has
Yes, it's
several
one big.
things, yeah, and it has several things in it. But the first one that you sent was zoomed in on what looks to me like a very proportionally correct gray
Yeah,
with a rib cage showing, which
yes,
that has been seen, and I have a recollection of that invertebrate going down the back.
yes,
The proportion of the head, the shape of it, and the eyes are quite remarkable. And the nose slits. Now the mouth is so thin sometimes, depending on the lighting, you can't see it at all. But so there's no mouth there. But what
well,
the thing that she said is the thing that everyone is afraid of, but don't want it to hurt you. It's just curious.
yes,
I love that. And
yes,
it says at the top, it says, feel it.
yes.
I'm
Now,
looking at another monitor. That's why I keep looking over
yeah,
that way.
understood. Well, she saw them in the woods behind her house when they lived here in Ohio, and she would call them because of that rib cage thing. And she was very young. She was very young when she started seeing them, and I think that's partially responsible for her love of Jack Skellington, because she would call them the skeleton men, right? And she said, but they don't have skeleton heads. And well, what do their heads look like? Well, kind of like balloons. And I'm like, oh, I know what she's seeing in the woods.
Yeah.
Oh, right. And so now, I mean, obviously, it's quite a few years later. She's 11 now. And this drawing she just did, this past year. But clearly, it's the same. These are the same beings, the same creatures.
Yeah. I mean, one of the other ones you pulled in on is an open doorway, I think at night.
Mhm.
And the doors open a crack, and it's dark behind the door, but I love the way she has the gray kind of like coming out of that darkness. She gives you a
Uh-huh.
feeling of that. You don't see the whole body; you see part of the torso and the head. Um, and the monster that's watching you sleep, it's not trying to scare you; it's just making sure you're okay.
Right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
and
I love.
it's incredible. And it's as we're talking, I'm showing these images. um I don't know how much she's been exposed to uh book covers and things because of your being around it, and you guys have spent a hell of a lot of time together. I know because I've seen all the pictures over the years, and she's quite a remarkable child. um but
Well,
she,
she did eventually see the book cover, but not for a long time because,
yeah,
again, like with myself, I didn't have any contact with any of that stuff. So we
right,
didn't. It was when she got older, then we started sharing things and telling her things and letting her see things, but not when she was little, right? Not to
yeah.
influence and she sees other things. I mean, she talks about seeing angels, what she calls
That angel, yeah,
right? And just it's a creature with a whole lot of eyes. And
a whole lot, and
she
like
labels
a symbol
yeah, and she
and
labels
wings,
monster, right? To her,
right.
they're monsters too. It's fascinating. It's
I've
fascinating.
always loved monsters. I mean,
Of course you did.
have you ever showed her the Munsters? I mean, you know?
Oh, yeah, she loves all those things. All those things.
Yeah, we all know how I make a living, at least how I
Yep.
did. I used to make monsters for a living. I loved it too.
Yep.
Uh, I like what she says, smile dog. The dog looks creepy, but it's just trying to protect you from anything that could harm you.
Mm-hmm.
Um, the angel that no one sees, but it's always is there watching you from above.
Yeah.
That angel with it's got like two different kinds of wings and then the eyes, but in the middle is clearly an eye in the shape of Horus type eye.
Yep.
That's really something. And then there's another one here. I just love this one. Uh, she drew the bed. You can see the comforter hanging over the edge. It's from the side. There's a
Yep.
couple eyes you can just barely see into there, and some creepy hands coming out, and the monster waiting for you under your bed. For you, it's just wants to play. It
Yeah.
just wants to play.
Play.
Um, and these, I mean, I was sitting there looking at these, and now I'm showing the full drawing that all this was taken from is really something. And I today I said, "Have you shared this with Whitley?" And you hadn't. So, did you
I
get any?
I
You
did.
didn't get it.
I know I did today. Yeah, and he did give send me a reply.
Oh,
And
good.
yeah, it was good. It was fine. It was good. Yep.
Well, I wonder if he was as surprised as I was. I mean,
He's
not surprised, but just I'm looking at it again, and it's just like, wow. I've seen people in support groups going back into the '90s drawing images just like this.
yeah, he did comment back to me, but he didn't comment about her drawings.
Yeah, well, that's very Whitley. He does that. Yeah, I mean, I don't know why you don't get more of a response from him, but he's not like other human beings. He's the first to admit it.
Yeah, it doesn't bother me.
No, it doesn't bother me either. I mean, I know him, I love him, I know how he is, and that's very typical. Um, I think really from his perspective is, well, why would this be surprising to any of us that know Raven and the granddaughter and each other at all?
Right.
That that's how he looks at it, and you
Yep.
know what? He's right. He really is. But I get excited about things still, and I found that very, very, very exciting. And I'm so glad you shared it. But that brings me to this.
Mm-hmm.
For those of you, well, I found out the other day that a lot of people don't remember Close Encounters. They remembered they liked it. I haven't seen it in years, and I'm trying to get them to go back and rewatch the film.
Always loved that movie. Always. I've seen it, I think 4 times, 5 times, maybe. Yep.
Well, he got it right, and everything in that is correct. I mean, like for instance, with Richard Dreyfuss becoming obsessed, his family thinking he's nuts and left him. People say he left them. No, they left him. They weren't supporting, and I know what that's like because I've been through it with my own experience. Yes, I got obsessed. I built a observatory on top of my roof just like he did. All that was cut from the movie, by the way, but you can see it up there if you go back and watch those scenes.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but the thing that really got me about it is that he's an adult and he's in his vehicle that night and his car is shut down and the lights come over him, and instead of being terrified and afraid, he's absolutely exhilarated by it like a little kid.
Yeah.
So is Barry. When that little boy, when they come for him, he's all happy about it. He's not frightened at all. The mom's screaming and losing her mind. And what I'm seeing today with all this is that people are forgetting about Close Encounters, a film that offered hope, that really portrayed the visitors as not something threatening. Portray them the way I'm pointing at the screen over here, your granddaughter's drawings. Portray them that way. They're just there to make sure you're okay. They just came to play. You know, I really want to uh, contest that. I don't. I'm sure you've noticed it, Raven, that so much of the talk shows and things about this subject matter on Facebook, especially the huge ones, are all pressing this threat narrative. You hear terrified over and over again. That word is used repeatedly in Netflix, YouTube. Joe Rogan interviews someone, the guest who has these experiences talks about the terror and how frightened they were. And then I'm just, it seems overdone to me lately, like somebody's pushing an issue. Do you get that at
Well,
all?
I think that yes, and I've hated that from the beginning, that that's all that the focus is on. It's on the people who, and I don't mean to deny anybody their experience. I'm sure,
No, no, no.
people do get frightened. People have had terrifying things happen. That's, of course, I mean, look, not every human is a kind soul. Not every visitor, I'm sure, is going to give you a good encounter either. But what I know for sure is that that's not all that's happening. And the way that is portrayed is that everything that's happening is scary and terrifying and threatening. And we need to guard against this. And what are we going to do? And we're powerless. And they're so advanced. And there's a breeding program and they're stealing humans. And oh, like, stop. Just stop. I mean, I want to hear all of the other stories, and nobody's interested in those stories because they don't lend themselves toward high drama, and it's all high drama, high emotion. It's just capitalizing on somebody's fear and terror for the sake of making a few dollars off that fear and terror. Very much like the political environment in which we currently live. It's just another manifestation of the fear and terror syndrome. So yeah, quite frankly, it pisses me off a lot that the visitors and anything like the visitors, anything that's not uh, in this dimension the way we are, gets a bad reputation immediately, as if they are the threat and something to be terrified of, and they're going to do something to me. But it's just, to me, it's just one more ism. We have racism, we have sexism, and so of course we're going to have this, because if it's anything other, it must be wrong. It must be bad. It must be something to be feared. And it's so incorrect, inaccurate, and wrong. It's just wrong on every level. I mean, I don't know what else to say about it. It's just wrong on every level.
When the
So,
most when the
yeah,
most terrifying thing is humans themselves.
yeah, yeah. Humans. I mean, when people have said, there's a late night talk show that asks questions, and one of his questions he always asks people is, "What is the most terrifying animal?" And the answer is humans. The answer is always humans, because we are. We do things to each other that animals would never do to each other.
That's very true.
We do think, and I think that's why people get so terrified of the visitors, because it's not about the visitors. It's about what we do. If we do these horrific things to each other, well, what are they going to do? What are they capable of doing? Well, you don't see dogs or cats or elephants or whales doing this stuff to each other. So give another, give another species the benefit of the doubt. Give another life form the benefit of the doubt. Doesn't mean they're going to be like we are.
No, it doesn't. And I really going back again to your granddaughter, going back to kids, going back to when I was a kid. Richard Dreyfuss' character, he called him Jiminy Cricket. Remember?
Yep,
He was obsessive. He loved model railroading. He loved Disney. He loved toys. He loved playing with things. He didn't lose his inner child. He didn't grow up. He kept full of wonder and questioned.
yep,
And I think that when we grow up and get real, we get violent, we get angry, and we expect everything we don't understand to have the same intentions as most of us do. And that's what you're talking about, people hurting each other and killing each other and everything. And what I get, at least from, well, you had that moment with that being, with that gray, whatever you want to call it. Um, did you get anything but a childlike curiosity from it? A feeling, a vibe of any kind that, I mean, you're connected to it. You share consciousness. Certainly
Yeah, I mean,
you must have had a sensation
I did
without words.
a lot of thoughts and a lot of sensations and a lot of emotions, and none of them. I mean, some of them were a little um, alien, for lack of a better word. I couldn't quite alien, but
Yeah.
I didn't get any. I wasn't frightened. I wasn't terrified. I wasn't. I didn't feel like I needed to defend myself. I didn't have anything like that going on. And I would say I felt like it was childlike. I felt like it was very, very old and very kind, like aware and wise and old. That was the sense I had.
I've heard this before many times. There's a real calm, calm sense about them, and they're very they're at a different pace than we are.
Well, there again, yeah, a whole different way of being in experience than we are, and that's another thing that I remember from being a kid is, my grandmother used to talk about, like, she would hear the banshee scream before somebody died.
Oh,
She was,
oh,
yeah,
really?
she was
My
deep.
grandfather did too.
Uh-huh, uh-huh. So she would hear the banshee. She would do little rituals and things like protect the house from lightning and like that. And she was an army nurse. I mean, she was a practical, down to earth. That my grandmother cursed more than any sailor you'd ever want to hear. Okay, so she was right in the thick of things, and she definitely had an otherworldly connection. But part of what I was taught was that things that live between the worlds, she didn't use those words exactly, but that, things that were, not quite here, not quite here, not quite there, right? So fairies, gnomes, whatever the hell you want to call them, because they don't have the same kind of brains and emotions that we have, they might sometimes do things that you would think of as off-putting or scary, but that
Mhm.
doesn't mean that they're trying to hurt you. It means that they don't understand. And I took that lesson with me through life too. It's like that was fascinating. And as I got older, when I was in college, I did read a lot about myths, Irish myths, and fairies, and gnomes, and Fintorn, and very much got that same, like, these beings can be very frightening and intimidating, but not because they're trying to be, but because their consciousness is so different than ours.
Yeah, we can only hope that our consciousness achieves a level similar in vibration with our own uniqueness. I find it interesting. So your grandmother was Irish?
Well, no, my grandmother was Slovenian, Slovak,
Okay.
something like that.
Okay.
But Scots Irish, we were Robertson was my maiden name, so that came from
Oh,
my grandfather's side. But she had a household banshee, and she had dreams that were true. She would call people and tell them what was going to happen. So I imagine that the contact that I experienced went back through the family quite a long ways, but it was never ever spoken about. It was just an automatic assumption that we're always in contact with things in other places. My grandmother could see and talk to her dead brother, Mac.
none of this surprises me.
Yeah,
Do you remember that my grandfather was Irish?
yes,
And you remember the stories he told me, and he talked about the banshee. He never said he saw leprechauns. He said he saw little people.
yep.
But God, I guess around 1994, 95, right in there, um, I heard this sound at night that almost sounded like a bad bearing in a car, but it wasn't. And I mean, I'm a car person, I'm an airplane person, I know machines, I've always had a fascination with them, and I know my sounds. This was like no sound I've ever heard. It sounded like something flying through the air and wailing. I can still hear it in my mind. And one of the friends I had from a Vaughn support group, uh, Sean, he used to come over a lot. And amazing things happened when I was around Sean.
Mm-hmm.
And I told him about that. And he described it back to me perfectly. And you could see his eyes got wide. He says, I heard that too. I said, it sounds like the Banshee. And he says, yes, it does. Um, no one around me that I knew passed away after that. But then again, maybe during that time I wasn't as focused as I need to have been. And if I think back, maybe there was someone that passed away as a result of that. I heard it off and on for a while, and I never have heard it since, but I heard the darn thing.
Mm-hmm.
And my grandfather was very serious about it. In fact, this Saturday, I have taken a scene from the movie, but something is there, and I remastered it and turned that whole bit between me and my grandfather and the being he saw in the churchyard and all that stuff into a short film because people have such a short attention span. They'll watch pieces of the movie that they rarely will sit through the whole thing. So that's on this Saturday. And so if you don't remember the stuff that happened to my grandfather and I, that is a cinematic version of it. Um, and the big orange orb that we saw in the sky that hovered over us and all that. Um, have you ever been with your grandmother when something occurred or anyone else in your family?
Well, I was with my grandmother when she saw her dead brother. She was we were laying down on her bed in the middle of the afternoon because she had gotten up early to bake bread, and I was awake. I had been awake for a little while, and she was just laying there, and she sat straight up, and she touched her arm, and she said, "Mac, your hands are so cold." And then she was silent for a moment. And then I heard, I don't think she knew I was awake. And then she got up and I heard her go into the living room and tell my parents that Uncle Mac had just been to visit her. So
Did you
she's,
sense did you sense anything at that moment?
no, I was focused on her.
Right.
Yeah, no, I didn't. Mm-mm.
And of course, in my family, my mom, when she was a little girl, was visited by her grandmother in the bedroom at night. And her grandmother said goodbye, and then the phone rang. I'm doing the short version.
Yeah,
The
yeah.
phone rang, and it was my grandmother, her mom, answering the phone and breaking down and crying and coming in and said, "Honey, your grandmother just died." This runs in my family.
It
I've
runs in my family too.
I've had it too. Um, it's it's amazing having these experiences and then coming up against people who haven't, who are
Yeah,
so hesitant to
yeah.
accept what you're telling them. And uh, it used to bother me when I was younger. I wanted to be believed. And now that I'm older, I really don't care. But what I do have is I understand why they're that way, and I have empathy for them, and I'm not bothered by it anymore. If you don't have the experiences that you and I have been through, I can't expect anyone to be
No,
accepting of it. I mean, some
no.
are. Some are. They're like, yes, boy, do I want to believe you. I believe that it happened because they
But
want to
it's
believe there's something more, and we're
yeah.
telling them there's something more.
But it's like explaining a rainbow to a blind man. I mean, it's hard. You can't do it. Or explaining music to a deaf person. Actually, you'd probably have better luck with that. At least there's vibration with the sound. But
Yes, you're right.
you know, the phenomena is so large because it encapsulates all of this interconnection that we have with the dead, right? I mean, my dad, first of all, my father was an undertaker, right? He was a mortician, so I am
Wow.
not a stranger to the newly dead roaming around the houses in which I lived, right?
Yeah.
And it was just a thing, not a big deal. And I my nieces one of my niece's daughters woke up in the middle of the night to this blinding bright light. and said, Grandpa, Grandpa, you're too bright. And so my niece went in to see her. And what she discovered the next day is that her grandpa, the grandpa, had fallen and hit his head and died a couple hours before. So he
Wow.
went to see her before he died.
You made a
You
beeline
know,
to her, and this is so happens so often. You
yes.
hear it so many times.
Yes, well, my grandpa, I mean, we were very, very close. I mean, essentially, he's the person that primarily raised me, right? And my sister already had kids, and I was pregnant, and he said he was still in New York. I was in Denver. He said, I want to live long enough to see my new grandbaby, my great grandbaby from you. And I used to have dreams that he would be at the end of this kind of ribbon of light in a rocking chair holding my daughter. And she was still in me at the time, right? This is when I was pregnant. Very long story short, her birth announcement and his death notice crossed in the mail. He
Right.
died the day she was born.
Wow. He Before she was born, he could quite
Yeah,
clearly see
out
her
with her.
soul. He could see
Absolutely.
her soul, and he could interact with her, and this, I know well from the
And she
visitor
looks,
experience, because there's many mothers who actually, experience the soul of their child to be
yes.
maybe a year before it happened, and they played with them and spent time with them.
Well,
This
my
this
daughter looks like my grandfather.
Oh, really?
She looks a lot like him, and she gravitated toward all of his. She has a lot of his. He was in World War I, and she has, the photographs and the. She has memories of being a warrior in, someone that's been in wars, and it's like I know it's from him. I know it's from him. Yeah. So they're very connected still.
So, you do have the ability and have seen, people who have passed on, and well, that's they're always who they are, whether they're in the body or not, but you're able to experience them.
Yes.
And have you built this into the work that you're doing at all? And are you seeing and experiencing things like this currently?
Yeah, I do. I mean, when I work with somebody, I mean, primarily I coach people around stress and relationships and things like that. And when I get to know them a little bit, if there's something there about someone that's passed, I do share it with them. Or I invite them to go on we'll do a meditative journey, like a shamanic journey where they can chat with them. Or I'll suggest that they invite them to come into their dream space. But I have a whole there's a place that I go that I've gone to for years in my dreaming, and I call it the Transition Hotel. And it's a
Oh,
place
yeah.
I've been to a lot of times where the living and the dead mingle, and I will often see people there either right before they die or right after they've died. And sometimes that's how I know something's happened because I see them there. So it's a very vivid, vital place for me. I've spent enough time, there's enough energy there that other people have dreamed about it and seen it the way I do. So, yeah, I work a lot actually with the dead. I don't talk about it all that much. I had a dream a number of years ago where I was driving a taxi and I saw someone dressed in their taekwondo outfit, a gi, right? I
Mhm.
saw someone I knew very well, and he was confused and he was standing on the street corner. And I said, "Get in, get in. I know where to take you." And he got in the cab that I was driving, and I took him to the hotel. And this was years ago before the hotel was, I'll say, a stable place in my dreaming. And a couple days later, and we hadn't, neither myself nor my daughter, who had been very close to him, had heard from him for years. And a couple of days later, we found out that he had had cancer and died suddenly and didn't want anyone to know that he'd been sick. So that was my experience with him. He came to
Wow.
me, I took him to the hotel, and then I found and I said to my daughter, "Well, he's okay. I know he's okay because I picked him up and took him where he needed to be." And that's the nature of like my relationship with the hotel experiences that I often find myself doing the work of a cycle pump, right?
Right.
helping the dead get where they need to be, helping the living interface with the dead. That happens for me a lot. Yeah.
So for some of these people, they've lived their whole life with not maybe not even thinking about what happens after they pass or realizing that their consciousness exists beyond their
Yeah.
physical form. So when they pass away, they become very confused because they expect to be, as I hear people say, it's all black. And I said, well, if it's all black, you're still conscious because you're seeing the all blackness. And, well, you know what I mean? It's done. It's over. Your brain stops. You're finished. And so if they truly believe that and then they pass away and they find themselves walking down a city street in complete confusion because they never expected that, they never learned about it in all their life.
Well,
um,
frankly, sometimes when people really believe that and they cross over, they sleep. They go into a deep sort of sleep on the other side until they can deal with it.
wow. Wow.
Yeah, it's fascinating. I mean, I have lots of stories. And sometimes not even even people who are deeply unconscious can show up like that in that space for me to tell me what's going on. I've had, for example, I've had clients whose parents were very ill, and I've had them show up for me and tell me what's going on with them so that then I can relay that information back and they can check it out with the doctor and then find out that, oh, yeah, that is what's going on. So sometimes the information I get is really clear and specific, which is, again, I'm not dreaming. I'm not making it up. I'm being given specific information. I'm passing it along and it's being verified. I mean, obviously, I can't give you any names because, well, this person would not want their story told. But I can tell you that it happens with more regularity than people know. And I'm not the only one. I mean, like I said, it runs in my family. My daughters both have relationships with the dead. So it's not, it runs in the family.
I know one hypnotherapist that works with people about these experiences and other experiences, but that they're related. And she'll have a client there, and there's somebody right there in the room. She can see
Yeah.
them, and so she'll bring this up to the client and describe the person. And you just see the look on their face, like, I've never told you about that. How could you know? That's my dead husband. Um, and they're there, and they're hoping that the person that can see them will, as you said, relay the information to their loved one that they're okay.
Yeah.
In most cases, they're more than okay. They're in a state of euphoria. It's a euphoric state. It's just like, my God, just I've been there, so I know what it feels like. I've
Yeah.
been there briefly. I didn't have a near death experience. I had what's called um, there's a different name for it, and it's when someone who dies. In my case, someone very young that was my girlfriend who went to a friend's house at night and had died of a brain aneurysm. I knew nothing about it, but she came to me and pulled me out of my sleep and brought me into where she was in this realm,
Yeah.
and wanted me to know, because she didn't believe in life after death, that I was right. But I remember what it felt like, and
Yeah.
um, it was exhilarating. It was just, it made me sick afterwards when I finally realized that that's what had happened, that she had passed. When I found out she died, I was really sick for about 2 weeks. I couldn't eat. I couldn't keep anything down. Um, it's very real.
Oh, yeah. It, but yeah, it's difficult to wrap your brain around if you haven't had the experience. Yeah. And it's also, again, I don't think of it as supernatural or paranormal, or this is just normal. This is part of
Yeah,
our everyday lives that we have been taught since we were very little to ignore, dismiss, and pretend it's not real, right?
yeah,
It's like
that's
the
true.
dream realm, the place, the space in which we dream is essentially a gateway to a variety of other between world existences. I'll say it that way. We can visit other places, and we do. We can visit the dead, and we do. We can step into the worlds where the visitors, and I think that's
That's
one.
right.
I think that, the visitors use the space, the vibrational space that we dream in. I think that is their entry point into our world. At least that's what it feels like to me. I see them, or experience them a lot in that space, and I think that's why they're connected to the dead, because they're kind of hanging out in the same vibrational zone that the dead live in.
There are many people on this channel over the last going on 3 years now, my God, that have just balked at the very idea that uh, near death experiences, seeing the dead, being in the realm of the dead, ghosts, they don't want to believe that these things are all connected, but they very much
Yeah,
are.
they are
And
connected.
if they work with people, as you and I have, they would know this to be true.
And it's not uncommon at all for experiencers to have experiences with the dead in the presence of the visitors, or
Yes.
facilitated by the visitor. It happens all.
Judy was 24 years old, and when she died and she came to me in my sleep, there you go. She said, that she loved me and she feels just, she tried to explain how she felt, that she felt great and that, everything was fine and that she loved me and she missed me and all this kind of thing. But she said, but you were right about this. And you're right about the aliens too. They do exist. And the feeling I get when I go back to that memory, because it's so clear to this day, is that in this cloud, in these clouds with this music coming out of it that were all around us, it was like a vapor. I'm starting to think that those clouds, which were all vibrating different colors and moving in and out of each other, were the visitors.
I think you're right.
Yeah.
Yep.
So, and again, none of this is a threat. It's all part of who we are, you know. At least to me and to you. And again, you underlined it. It maybe it's not like this for everyone. And no, it's not. I wonder sometimes how much of that is perspective, how you were brought up, what you believed of your elders and the authorities, because you and myself, your daughters, and many of the people we know have always been rebellious in the sense that
That's for sure.
since the time we were little,
You see my
we
shirt.
wanted to look, we wanted to look
Shirt says resist.
yeah, we always, in the time we were little, our favorite place to go was outside at night to look at the stars because we had
Yep.
this connection with them and the
Yep.
night creatures and the owls and all
Yes.
of that.
All that. All of that.
And we rebelled against what the people in authority were trying to tell us our reality is,
Yeah.
a contrived reality made by them to control us. And we were outside of that control the first time we looked up the stars at night and said, is there anybody out there? There is, isn't there? You
Yeah.
know? So
Oh, yeah. I remember being fascinated by, I remember pointing to Orion's belt, and telling my grandfather, that's where I come from. And him saying to me, okay, like, okay, like, it was not dismissed, not poo-pooed. It's just like, huh, okay.
me too. Did you watch the film I did, Breath in the Trees?
I did.
So it starts off with a gray on the surface of a planet that's in a star system that, from their perspective, they can see the Orion Nebula from the surface of the world. And I've always had that memory, and that's why I put it in the film. And I've always been fascinated with Orion. The first time I ever was able to do astrophotography, that was the first thing I ever did. I long-term exposure of it on film and
Yep.
got all the colors, you know, the purples and the whites and stuff. Yeah, that's something. And we have that in common too, and so many other people that have these experiences. Well, I could go on for another hour. I mean, God, it's been amazing. Do you have anything imparting that you would like to impart on our audience? There's a lot of people sitting out there um, who want to know why this is going on. Some of them are afraid. Some of them are resonating with us. More of them than not are resonating with what they
Yeah,
just heard. Do
I,
you
I,
have anything to say to them?
I do. I think that the most important thing is to stay open to possibility, to let yourself be curious and to see what happens rather than brace against what might happen, to just see what happens. And even if you are afraid, if you stand in your fear, something new might occur. Something might come out of it that was completely unexpected and beautiful and beneficial. But you have to be willing to just be open. And I think that's the most important thing. The more open we can be, the more curious. And it doesn't mean be Pollyanna, and it doesn't mean be stupid, and it doesn't mean embrace the guy with a gun. It doesn't mean anything like that. It means in the face of the unknown, just let yourself be open and see what happens next.
When you found, as a young child, when you found yourself confronted by the dark at night, did you feel compelled to step deeper into it?
I used to lock myself in the bathroom and turn the light off and stare into the mirror and see stars. Does that
Yeah,
answer your question?
yeah. I woke up one night at my grandmother's house up in the mountains, and for some reason, the whole room was black. I was blind. That's what it felt like. And I couldn't even find the light switch on the wall. There was ambient light coming from outside. There had to be, but I couldn't see it. It was, and I was a little worried by that. But when you talked about going in the bathroom, when I worked in the photo lab in high school. I had this great photo. I used to go there late at night, and I had the keys to it, and I would develop my film and print and stuff. When I was in the developing room with the Nikkor tanks, it was pitch black in there, and I'd turn off the red light, and then I would spin around one way and spin around the other way and completely disorient myself in the complete pitch black on purpose.
Oh, well, that's cool. That's fun. I didn't do
Yeah,
that.
I know. It's just that's how we were or how we are, and it's just
Yeah.
I wonder. I wonder
Well,
sometimes.
I grew up in Yonkers, New York, in a walk-up tenement apartment, and we spent a lot of time on the roof because it was the place to go. It was either that or go down 5 flights of stairs. So I would go up on the roof with my grandfather. So we spent a lot of time on the roof looking at stuff, looking at the sky, looking at stars, watching the sunset, watching things come over that may or may not be planes, right? We just spend a lot of time up there. And so being in the dark was a comforting and familiar place. I'll say it that way.
Yeah, yeah. All of it is so consciousness expanding. When you spend a lot of time under the stars at night looking at them and marveling at them, it just seems like we are a part of non-local consciousness. We're more than these bodies, and somehow you feel more in connection with that consciousness that's all around you that makes up this entire universe and all the other universes. So it's really an important thing to do is to go outside and spend time looking at the sky. I think if more people did it, we'd be a lot better off.
Oh, absolutely. There, and I'm having another thought that I'd like to share with people is
Okay.
to pay attention to your dreams. That dreams are not just something that the mind spits out. When we dream, we travel. When we dream, we cross the worlds. We can bring back energy and power and healing and information and magic if we just pay attention to our dreams and engage with the dreaming world. I think that's so important.
The Aborigines call it the dream time, and that was they feel exactly the same way as you. Raven, this has been a fantastic conversation. I expected it would be. It's always fantastic to talk to you. I want to thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thanks for inviting me.
And we need to have you back. And then I'll also put up a link during the show to your website. So if people want to reach out to you, they can.
Great. I would love that. I would love to hear from people. And also want to make it clear, I am not a medium and you can't hire me to do that. I don't do that. But if I get something, I'll let you know.
Okay. Thank you so much, Raven.
Thank you. It's a pleasure.